Hi, here we are. Another episode from the Loft, the podcast studio at NJCDC's Great Falls Youth Center. We started this many months ago. Here we are approaching Christmas. Today is December the 23rd, and it provides an opportunity to look back on all of the different topics we've talked about this year and look forward to the year ahead. And I'm so happy that we have with us once again Kaya King, who is the Chief of Staff at the State Department of Community Affairs, and my colleague at NJCDC, Eddie Gonzalez, my Special Assistant and Director of Community Outreach. And so I'm looking forward really to having a conversation today about all of the different things that we've done this year, that we've talked about this year, ways in which we've brought information to people so that they can get the help that they need. And, looking forward to the new year, ways in which we can continue this collaboration between NJCDC and the Department of Community Affairs to continue to help people have the information they need to live better lives. And so with that, Kaya, welcome.
Hello, Bob, Eddie. I think this is our 6th community conversation.
Yes.
I love that. We had I don't think we knew we were going to get this much bandwidth out of just a couple months, but
no.
Wow.
But we have.
Yeah. It's so nice, I think, to take a pause. And I was really excited to record this episode with you both because life moves fast. I think your organization, certainly DCA, we're always looking at the next thing. And I think it's really important to take that pause. And I think the season is a perfect time to do that, right? Holidays give us a point of reflection. And really an opportunity, I think, to see where do we want to go next with a lot of the work and the goodwill that I think both of our organizations have done. Mm-hmm. I wanted to start off first, I think, in this conversation with you both, because we've had some incredible guests. I think that's first and foremost. And hearing from people who are every day in those trenches is so valuable. But again, I think we both, as organizations and then individually are folks that put knife and teeth and really get in where the work is, right? Where we all get a little bit, in trenches. And I wanted to hear a bit from, both, you and Eddie. What is it that you're proud of from this year, right? Because I think NJCDC has been around for quite a long time, but you all try to push, I think, to the next level and really driving Patterson to a new level. But I wanted to hear from you all. What are you proud of? What felt good this year?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't think I could have predicted when we first met back in May, when you and Commissioner Suarez visited us. I guess I didn't realize that out of that would come this collaboration on doing these podcasts. We were just giving you a tour, and it included coming here into the podcast studio. And I guess that's where, the idea was sparked, and we're grateful for you for really giving birth to that idea. And I'm just really grateful that we've been able to have some very special guests to talk about issues like homelessness prevention and eviction prevention. Most recently with the president of the Board of Public Utilities on utility assistance and the lieutenant governor to talk about voting and engagement, particularly amongst our young people. And so a lot of information has come out of this studio. And I think really giving people information is essential for them to overcome obstacles and ultimately to improve their lives. And so that's really what I reflect most upon, the benefit that individuals are receiving as a result of being able to bring experts to this table every now and then.
Yeah, I would just only add that, running the Neighborhood Help Center, which is the hub of our community where, community residents come for assistance and resources, to be able to add value because of the participants that, you were able to bring here. And for Bob and I to learn more about the various programs that otherwise would have been difficult for community folks to, gain access to because of the lack of knowledge or information coming through, the different communication platforms. But this podcast offered an opportunity for not just us to meet individuals to provide that information to our community, but also for us to learn in the process and get better at what we do. And it really sparks more conversation about how, you know, partnerships, private public partnerships, really do work. And this is a good example of that. And thanks to you and the DCA and the commissioner for this partnership. We're thrilled to continue this.
I think you both hit the nail on the head. I think one of the things I've loved so much is that we all, I think, agreed that there was a bit of a barrier to access of information. And what I loved about our conversations with such esteemed guests, right, with experts, is that we were learning at the same time. And I think it's really good that we're deciding to disrupt this high learning curve expectation of people, right? And NJCDC is no slouch, right? You all have been in the community for decades, and there's still more for you to learn.
Oh, yeah.
I've been in government a couple of years, and I was in awe about hearing some of the information, even from my own department. And it would take 1,000 years for me to know what just a few of our subject matter experts were able to share. And I think being able to say, like, we're all learning it, even if you've been in the space, even if you are there making those measurables, there's always more to learn and there's always more to share. And when we come from that place of humility, I just think a lot of incredible information got out from that.
Absolutely.
I agree.
You know, I think when I look back at what we did here together, it inspired us in a lot of ways. You know, when we were coming in and we had that tour with you all, we were thinking about what we were doing to change the way people were looking at government and DCA, right? So this initiative was a part of us changing our brand. And we decided really intentionally, and I think our pillars match with NJCDC. So maybe we were, you know, inspired consciously and subconsciously, but, you know, data-driven decision-making, you know, the stakeholder engagement, right? This really helped propel and inspire us at DCA to think of our different venues of communication with our stakeholders, and working with you both gave, I think, a lot of good spark to some of the other work we were doing, right? How are we thinking at a different vantage, and managing solutions, right?
Yep.
How are we managing that?
Yeah, you know, and really it's what we're seeing here is where policy meets practice.
Yes.
You and the commissioner and others and some of our guests are responsible for coming up with initiatives and developing policies designed to help people. Our job is to take those policies or those programs that emanate from the policies and put them into effect and make sure that individuals are able to benefit from them. So if, for example, recently with the Board of Public Utilities, one of the things we talked about was this new initiative of community solar, and how people in Patterson can benefit by the community solar initiative and lower their monthly utility bills, even though they can't put solar panels on the roofs of their homes. Well, guess what? So far, we've signed up, I think, about 150 Patterson residents.
Wow.
Who now are going to get an average of 21% reduction, a 21% reduction on their monthly utility bill as a result of this community solar initiative. So the policies are created in Trenton, but they hit the ground here in Patterson. And we're really proud of being able to kind of make that connection.
And I think some of this is about both of our organizations. I think what the state of New Jersey and the Murphy administration is trying to do is we're trying to meet people where they are. We're trying to get outside of our kind of Trenton enclave, and decide to say that government can be approachable, that you can come with questions, that you can be a part of the conversation. And most significantly, that there is room for everybody at the table, because I think some of this is deciding that we need to have a multitude of voices that are coming to this. So I think this was a bit of a nice microcosm of what I think we want to see philosophically in the state.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And also the ability to post these podcasts on our YouTube page and other platforms so that they're easily and readily accessible by folks to take a look at when they have the time to do so. Yeah. Because people are so busy and there's so much going on, but the ready accessibility of the podcast and the information that we've been able to put out there, I think also is very helpful.
Yeah, I feel like accessibility is something that we're constantly working at driving, right? And I think you all have prided yourselves on being a voice for everybody in Patterson, and we've tried to duplicate that. We've had some roadshow series where we've gone out to really share the information, some of which was covered on the podcast. And then also I think having accessibility in our materials, right? And I know you all have made sure that there's a lot of government resource and information that's translatable, right? And digestible. And I know we've tried to do that at DCA, going out and meeting with local stakeholders in these roadshows, having a program book that was intuitive, that was automatic for people to search and be able to get information. And so when you look at the way that we're trying to shift in sharing the information, I think we've got a lot of good momentum going on into 25.
I think so too, and I'm excited to see, you know, how we can continue this into the new year, continue to bring subject matter experts to this table, and have these conversations that really benefit everyday citizens by giving them information that they otherwise might not have had.
Yes. I was curious, I wanted to hear from you both about, I think the season, and holiday season means different things for different people, but I think that all of us have this little kind of spark of hope because we get to the end of the year. You want to look back and reflect, but in reflection, you have, I think, hope for the future. And I wanted to hear from you both. What are you most hopeful for coming up in the next year, right? How do you envision your group and your organization and the people that make up for it evolving?
Yeah, great question, and I'm very hopeful as we go into this new year, and I'm very hopeful because we have a number of projects on the drawing board that I think are definitely going to improve this community, and a number of them are in concert with programs out of the Department of Community Affairs. So, for example, we've purchased this old go-go bar, decaying building right at the entranceway to the Great Falls Historic District. And we are going to take it down, and in its place, we're going to put a new mixed-use building of ground floor retail and 10 and 11 affordable housing units up top. When we did our, recently, within the last 2 years, our new 10-year neighborhood plan, the issue that kept coming up time and time again is affordable housing.
Yes.
It is the greatest need that we see here in our community, bar none. And so having the opportunity to build new affordable housing is something that we're very much looking forward to. We've talked about expanding the Great Falls Youth Center. Here we are in the podcast studio. But in this next year, we're looking to build a new building that will have an indoor gymnasium and other places where young people can learn and grow and develop. And so I think that's very exciting. We also, one of the things that's not well known about us is we run residential programs for people with developmental disabilities. And we have a project on the drawing board that's going to expand one of our residences for people with developmental disabilities. And I'm very hopeful about that as well. It's going to give them some new common space. It's really tight there right now. And I'm looking forward to that project as well. And finally, in this next year, we are looking to break ground, so to speak, on the rehabilitation of a church building that we own here in town, originally constructed in 1852. So one of the oldest standing structures in the city of Patterson, the old First Presbyterian Church. And we are going to be converting into a youth performing arts venue. And so, there's so much talent in this town, particularly amongst young people, but there's no place to really showcase it. And so we're gonna solve that, and we're going to rehabilitate the church for that purpose. So, you take all of these programs, and it's going to be a busy year, and we're very excited.
Yeah, I second that. And, Bob just explained a lot of the brick and mortar projects that are happening that's going to keep us very, very busy. But that said, for me, I think, after the brick and mortar is completed, I think for me, the hope is the opportunities that are going to come for the, hundreds, if not plenty of thousands of individuals who are going to benefit from these brick and mortar projects. Everything from, children in the schools to youth participating in various, robust programming within the expansion of the Great Falls Youth Center to families that are going to benefit from housing and additional support services. And then the opportunities that are going to come out of this, right? Opportunities to, multiply the success stories that we already have because of programming and support and the underlying understanding that the services that we provide really do transform lives. And I think that's key for us. Brick and mortar projects are great for neighborhood revitalization, and obviously that brings on other opportunities for other developers who see the transformation in our neighborhood and want to participate and join in on helping out this city. But I think for me is also the individuals that reside here that really need the help and services and housing, that are going to be sheltered, educated, inspired, motivated, and civically engaged. And I think that's a big part of this, right? It's like, let's get folks to a place where they're stable, their families are stable, but then educate them and get them involved, right? Get them involved in being more active in things happening in their city and things that they really care about.
I feel like when I hear from you and Bob, it really comes down to, I think, deciding that we can't do these things alone, right? Like you can lead fish to water, you can't make folks drink, but I think we're trying to teach people how to fish, right? Combining two really fun analogies there.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes down to, I think we both share as organizations mutual pride points, and that's in creating places for people, and I think more fundamentally spaces that everyone can share and have acceptance in and be able to grow.
Sure.
And the affordable housing is also one of the things we're most proud of at DCA. We go by a housing first model, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do anything in this life, towards a goal and a dream if you don't have foundation. And I think we all can agree, even from just a human right, that having a home is the first step to anybody being able to thrive, and even baseline survive in this world. And so we've been so proud of that partnership with NJCDC. And I think hearing about the work and not just saying we're going to create, and erect things, and really also bring these beautiful and important historical structures to a contemporary point that our youth and the generations can enjoy is an honoring, right, of what folks who have come before us have done, right, in government, in the nonprofit sector. I know for DCA, one of our proudest points has been what we've been able to do even in the last 5 years. Since February 2020, DCA has allocated more than $101 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And for folks who don't know that, that's a critical fund within the state that ensures that affordable housing production is done. And that's gone to 44 projects, and that's going to produce 939 affordable housing units.
Wow. I can tell you about one of those buildings that we opened just, I think, in July of this year. It's a 4-unit building, so it's not a big building.
Mm-hmm.
But just before Thanksgiving, literally days before Thanksgiving, we were able to give the keys to the door of one of those apartments to a woman who was homeless and now is no longer homeless. What I'm really proud about is I'm certainly proud that this woman now has a place to call home. But what I'm really proud about is that my staff knew that this woman had nothing moving into that apartment. And they moved mountains to find her furniture, to find her linens. They even filled her refrigerator so that when she moved in, she was ready to go. And it was literally, I think, the day before or 2 days before Thanksgiving. And it was so symbolic to me of the fact that it's not only about providing the housing, but it's about providing the assistance, the connections,
Yes.
Just the ongoing caring, if you will, to help people succeed. And so that one little story is a highlight for me of this year, and I think very, very typical of what can happen when organizations like NJCDC and NJDCA come together to, in this case, build housing and help this homeless woman thrive. And she's doing very well.
That's an incredible example, I think, of community impact, right? And I think it's really important to talk about the individuals, right? I mean, I think you can hear about some of the amazing programs we've covered over the last couple months, and it's so macro. But hearing that experience, right? Because when I hear that, that's something where a collective of people decided to give not just someone a second chance, but a chance to have a level of empowerment and dignity.
Mm.
Because if you don't have the food in the fridge, if you don't have furniture to sit on,
Right.
if you can't say I've got this space to recharge my battery and then be able to go back out and really do what I need to do and I'm empowered to do in my community, you can't do anything. And I think that's such a beautiful example of we work in the currency of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I think that's exactly right. And talking about this new building that we're going to construct in the year to come, to give 10 individuals and families this opportunity to have a new place to call home. And what I always say is at NJCDC, we build buildings ultimately to have the privilege of working with the people who live in those buildings. And we get much more out of it than I think the residents themselves do. The largest building that we've constructed to date opened about a year and a half ago. I think you may have visited it, the Barclay Place Apartments. And we constructed it in collaboration with St. Joseph's Health. And it is 56 units for individuals who have chronic health conditions, with on-site services to help them overcome their obstacles so that they can stay healthy and out of the hospital. And within the last couple of weeks, I've been there 2 or 3 times for different programs, and to see the spirit of community that is alive and well there, this disparate group of 56 individuals and families who have come together now to form a community. I've never seen it before. They do things together. They break bread together. This Sunday, they're getting on a bus to go to Rockefeller Center together to see the Christmas tree. And it's things like that that I think really kind of make me understand that the work that we do collectively is really important.
Yeah, I would add, and witnessing some of this is like families, individuals who otherwise probably would have never met, right? Because they're in different parts of town or different backgrounds, things of that, even speaking different languages. Providing a hub for individuals to really build a community and no longer feel like they're isolated, right? That there's others who are possibly even going through some traumas and issues that they relate to, and they can, share lessons learned and things of that nature, which I think is beautiful because when we gather and we see them, speak to each other, they're celebrating their birthdays, or just like Bob said, breaking bread at in a common space. It's heartwarming because that is what we look forward to, as Bob was saying, is like, building a building is great, but when you see the people who benefit from it and see them thrive, it's awesome. And to just go back quickly on the lady who was homeless, to your point, Kaya, housing is everything, right? Without that, you can't really progress. And this individual now, had attended some of our workshops, after moving in and being excited about everything that she had received and, being blessed by that. But now that she's active, right? Now she's coming to our workshops, our seminars, understanding, she's enrolling into like health, making sure she's enrolled during the enrollment period. Also, participating in many volunteer opportunities. So she's also giving back. She's a bright lady. Otherwise people wouldn't have given her an opportunity if they haven't, seen her at this state. And I think that's important to highlight because there's so many like her that we have to continue to help. And I don't know if there's enough funding in the world to really get everyone to that point, but celebrating 30 years of NJCDC and the vision that Bob had in creating this organization, which we joke around and say you created a monster.
A
But
good monster.
but the reality is, we wouldn't have it any other way. We have great dedicated staff that shares in the vision and really puts their heart and soul into the work because they know that at the end of the day, someone's really going to benefit from this.
I think what's so beautiful about what you said, Eddie, is that it really represents, I think, what folks want to feel at this time, right? The season of giving. And what I think is so inspiring, just hearing about just that individual example is it's contagious. So when we decide to think of individuals and when we decide to say we're going to work on changing the quality of life for our neighbors, our communities, right, our families, we are deciding then to share a different type of energy from my vantage. And I think it starts with these simple acts of kindness, right? And I wanted to hear from you both about how can others kind of embrace that, right? We have someone that benefited from the important work that NJCDC did, and that's a motivator. And how would you all, give guidance in terms of what others can do to kind of inspire that and I think make it more contagious? And I've got some thoughts, but I wanted to hear from you both.
I once heard a quote a long time ago, and it has stuck with me. It goes something like this: great opportunities to help others seldom come, but small ones surround us each and every day.
Yes.
And I think that that's a philosophy that if more people embraced it, this would be a better world, a better state, a better community, because there really is so much that everyone can do right in their own backyard. And it doesn't have to be building a 56-unit apartment building. It can be, cleaning your street and getting your neighbors to clean the street. Going to your local school and reading to children. Volunteering your time at Eva's Village here in Patterson with folks who have seen better days. We really want to encourage as many people as we can to volunteer, because out of volunteering comes not only a tangible benefit from others, but something that individuals themselves can be proud of. And so, volunteering, whatever you can do to build your make your neighborhood or your community better.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's a funny saying that I heard: the best nation is donation. So for anyone who can't participate, or maybe is not from Patterson or the local area, but believes in the work that we do and feels that they can contribute whatever it is that they feel that they can. That's obviously always helpful, because as a nonprofit, we rely on donated dollars to continue the service and to do the work that we do. So for all those who can participate in that way, it's always welcomed as well.
I think that it's important, I think, to both of your points that you have to start small a little bit. I think it can be really tough to kind of take big bites out of shifting your perspective and the energy and effort that it takes. I feel like we've lost a bit of manner. And when I hear about just the concept of volunteering, the concept of just deciding to, pick up litter that's in your space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are expressions of kindness to ourselves, kindness to the people around us. And, I have a toddler, and we always were in the latest phase, which is talking about manners, and that manners matter, opening doors, helping those around us, when they ask for help, and sometimes when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that when we decide that we can take some level of control over how we respond to our environment, you have real change, and I think what was so great about doing this collaboration is that we have power. We have power in voice. We have power in making things better or worse. And I think there's something so great that we have to remember about practicing kindness. And I think one of the messages we've tried to take in this is that when you hear the stories of the people that are behind the work, it's about coming from a place of giving and an expression of how we can be better to each other. And I think that's something we have to really carry into, next year and the upcoming. What are we deciding to do to spread that kindness, right? And I think this podcast was about an expression of kindness and engagement, sharing knowledge, and giving information to those that may not have it otherwise, right? And I think when we have this practice more consistently, you're going to see others try to mimic that. And I think we just have to be our own kind of best advocates and be the heroes we want to see. And I think that's what was so inspiring with all the episodes we had, right? Talking to, our experts on homelessness prevention, eviction prevention, right? Community resources, being able to look at other agencies and what they're trying to do to spread the word. That is a way that we can really duplicate in a very simple fashion, like sharing the podcast, right? With folks that don't know.
For sure. And there's no shortage of government agencies that have programs that can help people who we've got to get to this table. So maybe one of our objectives for the new year should be, and I'm sure will be, identifying who they are and getting them here so that we can, whether it's the Department of Human Services or the Department of Children and Families, Department of Transportation. I mean, every single agency of state government has ways that they can help people, and in our case, help people here in the city of Paterson. So we're very eager to meet them.
And I feel like, I want to turn a bit to what's next, right? Because I think, you can look back on a year of this type of, service work and say, oh gosh, we've got so much more to do. Or I think you can look at this and say, what types of things can we land? And, I think you started, Bob, and you, Eddie, with saying like affordable housing is paramount, right? And I think that's like a very obvious and important focus that we can have in the next year. I'm proud that DCA has been a part of, the Murphy administration's focus on affordable housing. We had some landmark legislation that was signed early in the year that was really to ensure that we had legislation to support towns in meeting the affordable housing obligations, right? There has been a lot of, court doctrine around this. The new law has established a streamlined network, right? And that's to ensure that we're determining and enforcing municipalities' affordable housing obligations, right? Because there's 564 towns and every community is unique, right? And I think seeing what NJCDC does, right? It's customized, it's intentional, and it's based on what the community needs. And this legislation was about bringing some level of continuity and really true support to all of our towns. And I'm proud of all of our staff because it was a collective effort. We had folks from our data area. We had folks from our local planning. We partnered with Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. Our Housing and Community Resources Division, has taken a huge, mammoth of a bite out of trying to make sure that we figure out how we're supporting towns. We were able to get non-binding calculations from the municipalities, right? Because a lot of the legislation was about what was the present need for housing, right? But where are we going next? And I think Jersey always is cutting edge because we think ahead. And the way that we decided to do this, which was giving towns an obligation and a level of calculation by a legislative deadline, October 20th of this year. That was our commitment, right? And that's a commitment that we give data, we give information, and that we're supporting the affordable housing responsibilities across the state, And I'm excited because DCA is trying to make sure that we're not just giving just funding without support, right? And I think you both have talked about, you can set up things structurally, but if you don't give the resource point for it to stay afloat, it doesn't matter. And I think all of our towns deserve that. I want to highlight briefly, because I think it's worth spotlighting as we talk about affordable housing, that DCA is making sure that we stand up a program called NJ Homes, and that's Housing Opportunities for Municipal Equity and Success. And that's really about helping the towns develop affordable housing in a variety of residential housing styles. And, Bob and Eddie, you talked about setting up housing that is for different populations and different people. And I think that one of the misnomers that can happen with affordable housing is that we have one concept, one stereotype, as it will, right? High-rise buildings, right? not really intended for there to be kind of families or a collective space to gather. And I think we're trying to blow that whole concept up. We're trying to say that in this type of work and with this legislation, how are we dealing with the missing middle? How are we dealing with creating duplexes, triplexes, garden spaces, right? Mixed use, things that are walkable, accessible, to make sure that we're really meeting the customized needs in every individual town. And that's what's beautiful about New Jersey. Every town is so different, and every resident need is different. And so we've become very excited to figure out how we're working together. And I think what NJCDC does with not just the production, but the economic redevelopment, and I wanted to hear a bit more from that, of layering up. We're not just going to build a space. We're going to figure out how we're driving business. We're going to figure out how we're retaining people in the communities where they live, and we're helping them have sustainable employment, and how we're doing, a better job of that private public equity to capital stack.
Sure. Yeah. The project I mentioned, tearing down that old go-go bar and building that affordable housing. And I mentioned it has ground floor retail. That particular component is going to be supported by some funding that we're working on right now through the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. But it is because what we're trying to do is not only build housing upstairs, but to have shops and stores on the ground floor level to create economic vitality, to create economic development. And in the corridor that we focus on most, which is the Spruce Street corridor leading up to the Great Falls and the national park that's there, there's another building that we're set to transform over the next 1 to 2 years from what is now a school building. It had housed Head Start, and we're going to transform it, and we're going to remake it into a new building with ground floor retail space that doesn't exist right now. Again, to drive traffic through the area, to create jobs, particularly for young people, which is something that's very, very important to us.
Yes.
And so, so creating that affordable housing is critically important. But as important is our initiatives to create jobs and economic development for the people who are going to live in those units.
Yes. And I think what we're both speaking to is about life cycle. We're talking about deciding to build homes that are going to actually be relevant and supportive of the people that live in them. And I think what's great about this is that we're not just talking about, I think where folks hear affordable housing, they hear about maybe one particular category or concept of people that need it. And I think we can all agree, because we're seeing it nationally, everybody needs housing that they can afford. Young professionals who are doing quite well in New Jersey need affordable housing. Yeah. You have multi-generational homes, grandparents with parents, with kids, and they need to have housing in that town that they've grown up in for generations. Deciding that we're going to help our older populations, that we're going to be there for our seniors in some of the most important times of their lives where they need that support to stay where they are. And when they stay, their families stay. And I think there's something really important about disrupting this not in my backyard concept about this and saying no, this is for everyone. And it can be tailored and customized to the people that live there. And I think what CDC does with that community engagement, what DCA is trying to do is say, we're going to engage on the playing field that you all have in front of you, right? That we're going to look at the space, that we're going to look at environmental factors, that we're going to look at what is sound planning principles and the way that we lay this out, and that it is for everyone and for people to remain, where they are. And I think when we're spurring that and that economic trend, it's key. I want to credit, I think Bob, you've been in the space a long time, right? You've seen a lot of iterations of the way that housing production goes. And, I want to give acknowledgement and credit to all the people, I think this year that have been really driving this. Commissioner Jacqueline Suarez has been the constant speaker on this issue, working with the administration, with your team. And I want to also give acknowledgement to Assistant Commissioner Janelle Winter, who oversees our Division of Housing Community Resources. I think that's a guest we're going to try to bring on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As we sneak peek it. But these are folks that, amongst her entire team, right? Dean, who we had on here, Mike Callahan, right? When we're coming up with resources plus production and deciding to say, like, this is the way we have to change these conversations, I think it's transformative.
Yeah. And again, once again, I'll go back to this concept of the work that we're doing. Again, the intersection of policy and practice, because you and your colleagues are doing everything you can at the state level to create policies that organizations like ours can then put into practice in communities, not only like Patterson, but the Mount Laurel Doctrine says that we need to have affordable housing in all communities throughout the state of New Jersey. As important as it is to have affordable housing in Patterson, it's important to have it in Princeton and Short Hills and Rumson. I mean, all throughout the state, because people need affordable housing everywhere. And, when that person who benefits from the Mount Laurel Doctrine and all of the implementation that's occurred, they've probably never heard of Mount Laurel. And that's fine, and they shouldn't have. All they know is that they now have a key to put in the lock of a new home, and that's what's most important. And so those of us who are community development practitioners and working on the ground every day, frankly, couldn't be more grateful that there are people like you and the commissioner and others who care deeply about issues like affordable housing and make it possible for an organization like ours to build it and to ensure that people who need it have homes of their own.
And, I feel you had said a quote earlier that was so beautifully stated, right? I think about the tone and tenor of what we've tried to do in these conversations and what we're going to do next together and individually. And I think you summarize it perfectly, right? That feeling of the key going into the lock, right? Yeah. When you see someone who has been able to walk into their new home, or their lights are back on and they didn't know if that was going to happen around the holidays. And, Maya Angelou, who's, I think a great inspiration, and we heard a lot of inspiration, right? And I think quotes are important, right? Affirmations. And, she would say she's learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's so critical to this. How are we making people feel empowered and better about their communities? And, I wanted to, ask you both a little bit, we both have talked about not just creating actual structures, but I think also foundations in policy and social justice that really improve quality, and I know DCA, we're always looking at that wraparound, right? And what you've given as examples are not just saying, here we're making some shift that you can visually see, but we're trying to also, I think, spiritually kind of uplift our state. We're trying to say consciously, we're going to have programs that support self-sufficiency. We're going to have programs that give services, whether it be mental health, career development, right, or placement, making sure that we've got also health services, right, which are a critical part of the way that our residents can thrive. And I think when we look at what we can do next, where do you all see, I think this community, but also the state going, that there's actual ways that listeners can help, right? I think we've tried to say, we're going to start conversations. And that's what I loved about this work with you both this year and what we're going to continue to do. But what are actual ways that people can get involved, and what you've seen, Bob and Eddie, in your expertise to really drive neighborhoods to the next level?
Yeah, after 30 years of doing this, I still wake up every day excited to get to the office. And it's really about the comprehensive nature of community development that we do here at NJCDC, because yes, a lot of it is about brick and mortar, and we have created over 200 units of new housing for people in need, but we do so much on the service side, and that service side is so critical. You mentioned mental health. So, for example, we run the relatively new NJ4S. It stands for Statewide Student Support Services, for not only for Patterson, but for all of Passaic County. I now have a team of 25 individuals who are going out to schools throughout the county to provide critical mental health resources to students, because all of the data shows that in the aftermath of the pandemic, students are suffering. The Surgeon General has called it a crisis of youth mental health. And we're grateful that the Murphy administration has provided the resources to create this new NJ4S program, and that an organization like ours can connect with people, young people, and their families who are struggling with mental health challenges. That is an important way that we help people advance. Again, talking just about the wide array of services, we operate here in Patterson the Financial Empowerment Center, where individuals come in every day looking for assistance in how to get on sounder financial footing. And the statistics are just phenomenal in terms of the amount of debt that has been reduced as a result of this program, and the increase in savings, and the increase in people's credit scores. So comprehensive community development, yes, it's about brick and mortar, but it's also about services ranging from mental health to financial empowerment. And by the way, I should have mentioned that resources for that Financial Empowerment Center are coming from, guess where? The New Jersey Department of Community Affairs through a pilot initiative,
Yes.
In concert with funding that we get through the city of Patterson. But there again, DCA is involved in the service side as well as the brick and mortar side.
I think it's also important, I think when you bring this up, Bob, what we're talking about is giving people the ability to be self-sufficient. And I think when we talk about, affordable housing, home ownership, DCA and NJCDC are in the business of saying to folks, we're not just going to kind of give you one particular thing and leave you to this, because what I think we all have realized is that it takes a village that stays with you. And you hit on something really important. That financial empowerment program, I can remember being, a bit brand new to DCA and that legislation coming across. And, that was coming at a time where I think it was 2021. We were still very much heavy in the COVID quandary and challenge of how are we helping people in emergency mode, and then how are we making sure those dollars were sustainable long term. And self-sufficiency is key. DCA is very big about making sure that we've got programs that are helping towards saving goals, that are helping to offset, the 1,000 little things that happen when you're on your pathway to, I think, having some financial empowerment and really stability, right? And building generational wealth, which is, I think, where our philosophies again align. We are in the business of not just affordable housing, but home ownership. And I think what you all do here is so critical, because we can set these structures in place, but if we're not giving individuals and residents in these families the ability to tap into that equity, to tap into the ability to say, we're going to pass this on to youth in an equitable way, in a sustainable way, then it's short-lived. And that's what I love about, I think, how you all have tried to move the ball forward, right? What is it about taking what's happened in Patterson for the last several decades and making it something that the next generation can pick up that ball and it's still going to be here?
Yeah. Attaining those assets is critical to building that type of generational wealth, to passing it on. It doesn't have to be, major. We had one person, and this is a program that goes back a number of years, when we ran something called the Individual Development Account, IDA program. Well, somebody was able through that program to save enough money to buy a hot dog cart, started his own small business, and became self-sufficient. And I always remember that because it was a success story. And, you don't have to go out there and create a multinational corporation. You just have to do something that can support you and your family and hopefully benefit the community as well.
Yeah, I would say that, going back to earlier conversation about sustainability, but also about, how housing, it starts with housing, because we can't even get to this point having these financial education workshops with individuals who are not stable at home, right? So one thing leads to another. And once we start to engage a lot of our residents and constituents from our community about financial education, that in itself is a success story, because these are conversations otherwise wouldn't have happened because they weren't prepared for it, right? searching for a home or searching for a roof over your head is really detriment to the success of the lives of these individuals. But when we pass that stage in their life, there's a momentum that happens, right? So then, we're able to provide, like we said before, a ton of services, support services that would allow them to not only get involved and engage, but be very educated in these areas that will, allow them to be self-sufficient, right? And understand that, there's more to life than what I lived already. And we just give new opportunities to them through the various sources and resources that come through our doors, through private partnerships like yours, but also thanks to all the banks that really helped out in giving us funding or partnerships where they come in and they start to speak to some of our residents through their staffing and services that they provide. But I think that in transition we see folks really engage and become more self-reliant on themselves. And I think that's important because we can only do so much, right? But the individuals themselves has to want to do better and seek other opportunities on their own. And we've seen that and I think that's the success story just in itself. When we have those opportunities to speak to these residents.
And I want to jump in here because we are only 2 days away from Christmas.
Yes.
And I think it's an important time to reflect on something that never ceases to amaze me. And that is the almost limitless generosity that we encounter of people who want to help those in need, particularly here in a city like Paterson. Tomorrow, for the 30th year in a row, we are going to be holding our annual Christmas Eve holiday party for economically disadvantaged children and families. Over the last 2 or 3 months, our organization has collected over 7,000 donated toys from people throughout the suburban ring here of Paterson. And all of those toys have been gift wrapped, and we will be giving out those toys to, I think, about 600 different families who will all gather tomorrow at a gymnasium over at our charter school. It's quite the sight to behold. Mm-hmm. We just within the last month received $1 million donation from a family who lives in Bergen County and cares deeply about the work that we do, and it is going to go towards the construction of this new wing of our youth center. But on the same day that we received that $1 million donation, we received a $10 donation. And I have to tell you that I look at that check for $10 with the same type of amazement as I look at that check for $1 million, because I know the person who sent that check for $10, and I know what a sacrifice that is for that individual. And it is just so heartwarming for me, no matter the size of the donation, that there are people who care. Paterson has an enormous amount of need. And I find that when people are asked to support the work that we're doing to address that need, I can't remember one time that someone said no. Everyone always steps forward to help. And that probably is one of the most rewarding things about the job that I have. To see that generosity, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think it is something where when we're reminded of that gratitude, right, of seeing where folks are able to kind of be in the space, call to action, and they give what they can. Mm-hmm. And it makes you grateful, I think, not just for the work, but for the folks that are around us that try. I think we're all trying to show up and try. And I wanted to hear a bit from you both. That's a great example of an expression of gratitude, right? And what is it that you want to say to the folks in the community that have really banded together, right? Because I think you're right. The $10, the $1 million, the hours of time when people kind of take out of their day, that expression means more than the sum.
It does. And gratitude comes in all kinds of, forms and fashions. And we're fortunate to see it all. And so just, was it this past weekend? We had a a young man who attends a suburban high school and wanted to do a community service project and came to us. And his dad is a physician, and so he wanted to have a class to teach CPR and first aid to individuals here in Patterson who wanted to learn it. And right downstairs in the same building, we had, I think, 45 individuals who took part in that class free of charge, all got their certification cards. But, that's an example of just, in this case, a young person who says, I want to help. And that young man and his family, well, they're grateful. And this is for all that they have. And this was one way that they could sort of give something back in terms of that gratitude. And it comes in all kind of forms. I mentioned already the 7,000 donated toys, but it also comes in individuals who will cook for the neighbors, and we see that all the time in our buildings. And so, again, as I said, great opportunities to help others seldom come, but small ones surround us each and every day. And the ability to show that gratitude is all around us.
Yeah, I would add, and I wouldn't want to forget, during our hardest and toughest times during COVID, um, the amount of support and individuals that came out to support us when we were distributing food boxes to 500 families. And it was very laborsome, it was intense. And out on the in our parking lot, we created a system, but individuals from all walks of life called in and said, when can I go in, do you need help? Every organizations, nonprofits, businesses, fraternities, sororities, college students, just local residents, people who actually were the recipients of some of these boxes were volunteering the whole day. It would be a full 8-hour day to get this done and accomplished. And we started this for 6 months, and we ended up doing it for over 2 years. And that's distributing 500 boxes to 500 families every month. And again, the pour of support during the toughest times, that when people would shy away from gathering or being together, really, I honor and respect that sacrifice, that they said, you know what, I am going to go out and I am going to participate. And that's a time that I will never forget, because as we discuss everything from small events to large events, and things that may seem trivial to things that are very important, we've always had great people who come and gravitate towards what we're doing and support us. And we can't say thank you enough to all of them. And they're from all walks of life, all economic backgrounds and things of that nature. And I just think that NJCDC and our community outreach department, also my right hand, Christina Tone, who takes the lead on a lot of these activities. And I want to give her a shout out because the labor that goes into the work that we do, and especially trying to engage with community folks and get them engaged so that they can see what we do. And when folks see what we do, they tend to want to know more, and they want to volunteer and be more of it. So what I would ask is that anyone who's curious about what we do, come knock on our door, come seek us out, and we'll love to give them a tour, talk to them about the work that we do, show them, because when they see it for themselves, they'll be at all. And I think that's how we've been, successful in bringing a lot of partners to NJCDC.
Yeah, I think that's what's my favorite part of the season is the counting of gratitudes. Is being able to really recall back to the individuals that make it work. I think from my vantage, and I think on behalf of the commissioner, I think I really want to just say thank you. We have a collective community of volunteers, supporters, stakeholders like NJCDC that make this work so rich and purposeful. And I want to make sure I'm honoring, I think, our staff. We've got over 1,000 employees at DCA, and that's a part of the larger, state workforce family, local county government that show up every day, that do 1,000 things behind the scenes that no one sees. And the funny thing is that when government's working well, nonprofits work well, you're not supposed to notice.
Mm,
It's supposed to
true.
just be there. And I play a very small part of it. I always feel so grateful for the gratitude you both give me. And it's a collective. It's not one person or one group or one agency. I think that's what this podcast has shown so brilliantly. And we can't do it alone. And I want to take a minute because we've got DCA, I think, becomes a nucleus in a lot of spaces. You know, we've got the housing that we've talked about. You know, we were able to feature our Office of Eviction Prevention, our Office of Homelessness Prevention, two critical rungs that are helping people stay in their homes or find homes in New Jersey in a sustainable way. We also are part of safety. You know, our Codes and Standard Division, our Division of Fire Safety show up in a million different ways to make sure structures are safe, to prevent, you know, tragedy from occurring, right? And doing it in ways that you may not always see. And we are also an area that gives technical assistance. And so I want to acknowledge, you know, folks don't know that we have oversight over the 564 municipalities and local government services. Our local planning services constantly provides technical assistance so that we're developing the space and place of New Jersey to match the people that are in it. We protect privacy, you know, through our Office of Information Privacy, right? For those in government that serve and dedicate themselves, judges, law enforcement officers that give their lives to this. And then we give funding, right? We have so many areas that we are giving funding to our urban centers, our smaller towns, our larger towns, our rural, our suburban. And it's something where I'm constantly taken aback by the extra mile people are going to. I also want to acknowledge too that what we've talked about in this space is about service. DCA has internal divisions, I think your organization does, right, that serve the people who are serving others.
Mm-hmm.
And this season, I think, is also about honoring that. You know, we've got a phenomenal, you know, internal customer service ring that does and shows up our IT, our HR, our admin services, the people that decide, you know, to come in and help us with the dollars, right, our fiscal folks, to get that money out to places like NJCDC. And I say all this to say, and I call that out because I think if we all each decide to kind of call out the support that we've gotten, whether it be in our workplaces, whether it be in our families, whether it be in our neighbors, it will give us, I think, a good motivator going into the new year, that if we can acknowledge what's happened already.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I have to think of all of the 170 or 80 people now who are employees at NJCDC, and all that they do. And I am ever conscious of the fact that it's usually myself who will get called to the front of the room to receive the accolades for the work that we do. But nothing happens without those 180 employees doing their job each and every day. It's not Bob Garashi, but it's those 180 individuals that makes this an indispensable organization here in the city of Patterson. And I never forget that.
I would just add that it is Bob Garashi as well. He created this monster, like I said before.
A good monster.
Yes.
One thing one thing he said is that he loves waking up to, you know, come to work. And I'm thinking to myself, when does he ever leave to come back to work? So, you know, he's there 7 days a week. And, you know, there's folks that wonder how NJCDC does what NJCDC does. And it's really, you know, the dedication and hard work of a visionary leader like Bob, who obviously, you know, created this organization to be what it is today, but it doesn't come, you know, it's not a 9 to 5, right? So, you know, he dedicates more than 12 hours a day, literally 7 days a week. I don't believe he's taken a vacation in the 30 years that we've had NJCDC. And I'm not exaggerating. And we're working on that for the new year, by the way.
Same here. We're trying to get some folks to have a break on our
but I
end.
think that, you know, giving credit to Bob Garashi, who actually was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame this year, along with a lot of great others.
Let's stop this.
No. I think you know, we you know, I always like to give the flowers when they're, you know, here to be acknowledged. I think that Bob has led this organization to. He has created leaders in this organization. There's many folks who have come to the doors of NJCDC that are now either CEO CEOs of large organizations or nonprofits or institutions, or even in the political, atmosphere, whether it's the mayor himself to others who work for the mayor and city government and county and state levels, or who have just engaged in the process. I think that NJCDC has been a revolving door for folks who come in, gain an experience, contribute. They put their best foot forward, and then take that on to the next level in their career and become very successful. But that couldn't have happened without a visionary like Bob, and the support that he provides the staff, and of course, and all the staff members who dedicate their countless hours of work, hard, intense work to make everything happen and come to life. So yeah, I second that, Bob. I think all of NJCDC staff and volunteers. I mean, because it's not just the staff; it's also volunteers that act like staff. Sometimes they come into work, and we have seats for them and desk and whatnot because they're here so often. So yeah, thank you to all of them, and I wish everyone the best of 2025 and beyond.
I wanted us to I think leave maybe with just a bit of a closing call to action, right? And I think we're in a community of doers, and I think that's what's really nice, right? The shared connection that we have as a private and public organizations coming together. But I want to hear from you both. What would you say is a simple step from what you've learned and from what you've witnessed that everyday people can take to change and make their communities better, especially as we go into 25. I think there's a lot to look forward to, but what would you give to our listeners?
I would say no matter where you live, try and find an organization that is working very hard to make a difference in the local community. And if you don't already know them, get to know them, approach them, inquire about volunteering opportunities. And like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be big. Many schools have programs where you can go in and read to children. I think about senior citizens and social isolation and the programs that exist to connect seniors with others in the community so that there's some socialization going on. Food pantries. The list is just interminable of different programs that exist in communities from one end of the state to the other. The opportunity to get involved in helping others is there, and it is ceaseless. And my advice would be to find an organization in your local community and just go through that front door and say, I want to help. You'll be put to work.
I would agree and add, the concept of just, pass it forward, right? So if there's anything you can do to be generous to a family or an individual in need, it doesn't need to be, this major project that you have to get involved in, but on a day-to-day basis, if you just live your life full of gratitude and be humble for what you have and just pass it forward. If you can help someone, especially in times of like the holiday seasons, but throughout the year, there's always something you can do in your immediate area. You don't have to go too far, do too much. There's very simple things you can do. Create a community garden, and get other folks involved. And, talking about the seniors, I'm sure there's seniors that would love to be a part of that, and break down the barriers between the generational gap, between our youth and our seniors, and figure out a way to do something to connect the two. There's many things that individuals can do on a day-to-day basis. You just have to want to do it. And I think, tying your passion to that as well. We just gave out, in fact, some awards this past week to individuals who we engage in our community to start a project in their neighborhood that would benefit the residents of our community. And, we gave out $1,000 awards to 10 individuals. So it's $10,000 worth of community service work and projects that's going to happen in the next month or two. And it's everything from a community garden to, individual who's a chef, actually a couple who they're both chefs who are going to come and teach individuals how to cook healthy meals and things of that nature for a period of time, to mental health programs. And we have a chaplain who's coming in to, do a lot of workshops around, what she's so passionate about is mental health and counseling, especially around the time of Christmas and New Year's, where so many folks are unfortunately, feeling isolated, lonely, things of that nature. So these are the small things you can do with your skill sets and your passion that can really, transform a life. And if you're intentional, you'll find something that would be, life changing for someone.
I'll close. I think it's such great advice. I think you both have given, and what it makes me think of is we've got to be more intentional about how we make others feel, and whether we're doing that in our work, whether we're doing that in our everyday lives. You both have given very simple examples, and I think that's really where the true meat of this is that it doesn't have to be big. It could be taking a little extra time to listen to your next door neighbor who's maybe living alone. They're older, right? It could be mentoring someone at work, right? Someone who's got a lot of potential, but maybe you can give them some guidance. And it could be as simple as walking into that organization and saying, I've got 2 hours. Need some help lifting some boxes, or can I make a call or help out? Those things are so critical. And I think the way that we decide as a world and as a community to be more intentional, that we're making each other feel better and that we have a lot of control over that, and I'm grateful for what we've done in this partnership. I'm excited to see where it goes next. I'm excited to see also where nonprofit and government can go to really decide that we're going to have lasting impact and partner together and disrupt these silos. What I'm hopeful for in 2025 is I think we started small and we're growing, and everyone can be a part of that, and if I can, have a hope and wish, and as we, I think, wish everyone well, it's that we're going to say this time next year that people felt better in our state. People felt like they looked around and they were living in some space and place that they can be a part of and support going forward.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Once again, thank you to you, to the commissioner, all the wonderful people that you've brought to this podcast studio. It's just the start of, I think, what we're going to see in 2025 in just a very compelling way. And so thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, Bob.
I second that. Happy holidays to you, to the commissioner, and to everyone working so hard at the state level at DCA. And let's have a great 2025.
Yeah, looking forward to bringing you all some more content. Stay tuned.
Awesome.